Hey everybody, wait a minute. Now what the world is sorry, this is one of those days. I'm telling you, it's one of those days. Can you hear and see me? Because I plugged into the internet, but it's claiming that it's not there. So I'm only working on Wi-Fi, which sucks and means that, you know, I may or may not have good transmission. So do let me know if you can hear and see me, considering the fact that now I don't know, the actual Ethernet is gone to hell. Yeah. So do tell me if you can see me because I'm supposedly live by 40 seconds now. So somebody tell me you can see me. Now, please tell me you can see me. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Annie, Lisa, somebody tell me you can see me. This is not going well. No one is recognizing me. Does that mean you? Can you hear me, Annie, as well? Is there some weird lag thing going on? That's a problem. I'm really frustrated. It's funny because I just did, and Annie's just mentioned that I just did I did a quick video on Alex Murdaugh, and I was struggling with getting connected to the internet. I mean, I had the Wi-Fi going, but I'm plugged in to the internet, and it kept saying I wasn't plugged in, and there was a problem. So I was losing my mind, and finally it did plug in. I recorded it, and oh my God, the comments are lagging. Really? Interesting. The comments are lagging. I'm so frustrated sometimes with the connection issues, and I don't know. I'm going to have to call Verizon and find out why they're hating. Now they say everything is connected. Okay, so now they're claiming everything is connected, and there shouldn't be any lagging because I'm now plugged into the internet. So anyway, I'm just hoping that those who are here can actually spend some time with me and not lose their minds because I am losing mine. This has been one of those days. But at any rate, God, Annie, somebody else put up a comment, say, "Hi, Pat, here you are." And so I just know that the comments are not actually, because I can't see anything but Annie's comment up here that says the comments are lagging. So, at any rate, I will therefore go ahead with the program. I will answer questions, assuming that this is not lagging. I don't want to bore you to death with just talking about lagging. Hold on a second. Thank you, Christine, for your wonderful. I love this thing. It's so cute. And you don't know what's in here. It's been one of those days, but I'm going to say there's something in there with my Diet Pepsi. Does that get me blocked on YouTube? Does that mean I get demonetized because I said there might be something else in the Pepsi? I tell you, always so frustrating. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk about some things some questions I've been asked about. Oh, before I do, I just want to mention, I did just put up a video on Alex Murdaugh. Wait a minute, what's his name? I can never remember his name. And I put that up because they just said he embezzled like $4.3 million of the insurance money that was supposed to pay off to his housekeeper's family because she supposedly tripped over some family dogs and died. And the family never saw any money. So go over to that video. Since I don't do editing, there's not going to be that little thing that pops up here that says, here's the video to prove. No, you just got to go to my channel and find it because I do not do editing because I don't like to. So, but it's real. Alex Murdaugh, and it's just I was floored when I heard about the housekeeper and the dog incident. So it just blew me away. So anyway, go over and check that video out when you after finish looking at this video. So now I have had some questions, and I think they're really good questions. But before I do that, I want to tell you a story. And it's just a really interesting story about psychopathy and how young people get fooled by psychopathy. And this is actually something in my real life and will be in my future book, which is called, I'm not going to give the name because if I do, somebody will steal the name, but it's a really cool name for my book about my life experiences in television and profiling and just my life experiences. It's going to be a lot of humor because you know me. I have to write a book that's, we got to have some fun, right? So anyway, here's a story. And this is a true story. I'm going to change the names to protect the innocent. So I'm going to say a friend and I. So when I was maybe 18, a friend and I decided to move to Florida, because I have no idea. We were 18. So, we said, oh, let's move to Florida. So she packed up her vehicle. I packed up my vehicle with very limited stuff because we didn't have anything anyway. And we drove in tandem down to Miami, where we were going to find some new weird life. I have no idea. I look back and I think, what was I even thinking? But anyway, it was fun, So, when you're 18, you do, or 19, or whatever the hell we do fun things. So anyway, we were driving down to Miami. Somewhere along the way, we stopped at this Motel 6, one of the finer motels. And we stopped at Motel 6, and next door to us was this dude. And he was like, hey, how you doing, girls? And I'm like, hey, we're gonna. And then he said, I got this problem. I picked up this hitchhiker. And I'm a little worried about this hitchhiker because I think he might be like, I don't know, it's a hitchhiker. So I don't know if he's safe or not. And I want to make sure that I've got to fix my clothes again. I don't know if he's safe or not. So I have this money. I have like $200. And could you protect it for me? So would you be willing to keep that at your, next door at your place so he doesn't steal it from me? And so my friend and I was like, no, because I was always like a profiler, even when I was 12. So my friend's like, hey, okay, sure, we'll help you out. And I'm like, don't do that. But my friend is like, okay, let's do it. So we go in, she takes the $200 and we go into her house and she's like, where should I hide it? I'm like, hey, dude, that wasn't a thing back when I was 19. We didn't say dude, but okay, friend. Okay. She was like, should I hide it in the toilet paper roll? And I'm like, if you hide things in the toilet paper roll, you look like you're guilty of something. So let's not do that. Let's just put it underneath this tank. Okay, folks, I was carrying African frogs with me because I like frogs. Annie, you will relate to this. You know those cute little African froggies? They're really cute. Anyway, I had 2 African frogs in this little tank. And so I said, no. Let's just put the $200 underneath the tank. So it looks like we're holding it, but we're not hiding it. So I convinced my friend to do this. So little while later, knock. So there's a knock at the door. So we open it up and this dude is standing there. Not the same dude who gave us the money, some other dude. And he goes, he throws up a badge and he goes, I'm a detective with a such and such police. And I'm like, oh, crap. So he goes, we're investigating this case where this guy says he was hitchhiking and the guy he took a ride from stole money from him. And I'm like looking at my friend going. And so they came in and so we told the story. Well, I told the story because I'm good at telling the story. So I'm like, oh, that's true. My friend was like really wanted to help this poor guy out because she thought he was the guy that was, was afraid he was going to be money stolen from. So we just put the money there so he could come back and get it later. And because it was sitting nicely under the frog tank, we didn't look really like crooks or accomplices. So the dude goes, well, you girls just, you fell for something. And so the money was returned to the quote hitchhiker. And we did not get taken in for being accomplices because of those African frogs, which thank God I had African frogs in me because at that point, he just thought we were stupid, which would be accurate. And oh no, you think the story ends there? No, the story doesn't end there. So my friend and I go on down to Miami. Did I just spit in the camera? So my friend, it's been a long day. My friend and I go down to hold on a second. My friend and I go on down to Miami. It gets worse. So we go down to Miami, and we're going to be. We go to this like club, and there's this like people singing, and this dude singing, and this guy comes up to us and he says, "Hey, girls, are you singers?" The answer is no, but of course we said, sure. He said, would you like to join my band? And, being 19 or 18, whatever the hell, we're really stupid. Like, why would a guy come up to us and want us to join his band? He hasn't even heard if we can sing or not. But hey, it's cool. Oh my God, we want to be in a band. We've come to Miami. We're going to be in a band. So anyway, the guy says, oh, let's go get some food and stuff. So we all get in my friend's car and we're driving around Miami. And this dude's going, oh yeah, I'm performing at this place tomorrow night. And I'm going to be over here on Wednesday night. I'm going to be here on Friday night. And my friend's like, our eyes are like, we're going to be famous. So this goes on. So then he goes, let's go to see my manager. So then we end up at this dude's house. We're sitting around with some guy in a bigger house with a pool and stuff like that, So Annie says, you can't sing. Yes, I can. I can sing. I can sing very well. No, I can't actually. But so we end up at the manager's house. And we hang out. We have I don't know, we were drinking something, probably because that's how you keep people stupid. So anyway, the manager's like chatting. The manager is like chatting with this dude and we're all hanging around. And then it gets like this. So the guy says, my car's in the shop. So perhaps what I'm going to do is, can I borrow your car? My friend's car. And borrow your car and I'll drop you off at your hotel. And then I'm going to get done what I got to get done. And then I'll pick you girls up tomorrow and we'll go to this club where you're going to be singing, even though he's never heard me sing or her sing ever, because we have never sung in our lives. And so my friend goes, okay. And I'm like, dude, which again wasn't used in 1972. Dude, don't give your car to some loon. We don't know who this dude is, but she gave the car to him and he dropped us off at the hotel. Okay, motel, because we weren't staying in any hotel. Motel, maybe another Motel 6. So anyway, we're there. And the next day he doesn't come and pick us up. We're a little upset about that. So the night before so that night we went back to the club where that quote manager was at. And we went up to the manager, who thank God was there. And we said, hey, manager, where's your guy who's singing in all these places? And he goes, what are you talking about? And we went, the guy we drove over and hung out with you. He goes, oh, that guy. He's no singer. I don't manage him. He works at the Pancake House down the street. So we go, oh, crap. So anyway, we got over to the Pancake House and we walk in and there's a dude flipping pancakes behind the counter. And it turned out the guy was 17. He told us he was like 23. He was 17. And so I leaned across the counter and I said, give us the keys. And he said, oh, okay. And he gave us the keys. So we took them and went out to the lot and picked up our car and left. I just want to point out that that's how things go when you're really young and stupid. And people always ask, why would a young person do that? Oh, I can't believe, they would never do that. Parents, they're always saying, oh, parents would never do that. I'm sorry. The parents would say, my kids would never do that. Oh, my daughter would never open the door to a stranger. You know how many times I've heard that as a profiler? My daughter would never open the door to a stranger. You know what? I opened the door to strangers. I've done that all my life. I remember one night I was in my home and it was like 11 o'clock at night. Knock, knock, knock. And I'm like, and I was, mind you, at that point I was probably, I'm going to say in my 40s. And knock, knock, knock. I'm like, who the hell is that? I go over there. I throw open the door, and there's this big dude standing. I said, oh. And he goes, and he mentions my son's name. I go, oh, thank God, and yeah, he's home. And so he went up there and all was good. But I did open the door to strangers, and people would say, well, criminal profiler Pat Brown would never open the door to strangers. And I hate to admit this here because then some strangers will come and knock on my door and kill me. But I suffer from curiosity, and I'm like, who's that? And I'll go and open the door. So yes, I have an issue with that. And most people do. Most people, when they hear a knock on the door, are not as suspicious as they should be. They open the door, even if they look through and say, oh, that dude looks like a UPS guy or Amazon dude. They open the door. That's why so many times in certain criminal cases, they say there was no sign of forced entry. Well, there isn't, because You open the door and let the dude in. And that has nothing to do with the fact that you knew the person. And then the whole family goes, oh no, she would never open the door to a guy she didn't know. Not true. Almost all the time. Yes, they do. And or a family will say, she would never go home with a guy from a bar. Really? Okay. Really? Girls don't go home with guys they don't know and sleep with them. Okay. Why do you think guys go to bars? Because they can pick up girls who say yes and they go home with them and have sex. That's why. And so parents, a lot of times, are very much not in the know, and they'll say, "Oh, I wouldn't. I can't believe that my daughter would ever do that." Yes, they would. Yes, they would, because young people sometimes aren't that bright. And I look back at my own life, and I'm going to say, I don't think I was that bright when I was I was brighter than my quote friend. And that, I was suspicious of what was going on. I was more suspicious and more concerned than she was. She was more into the moment and having fun and having an exciting moment. So, yeah, so it's, this is one reason as a profiler, some people ask me, one of the questions they ask me is, as a profiler, do you believe everything the family says? And my answer is absolutely not, because the family is often in the dark. The family is often has a much more positive view of their loved one than is true. And they don't want to admit to their loved one's faults, or they don't want to admit to their loved one's foolishness. They don't want to admit that they probably did the same damn things when they were 18 years old, and now their kid is 18 years old, and they don't want to admit their 18-year-old child is doing the same things they did. Those stupid things. Annie asked me, how long were we in Florida? Well, that was a very short trip. Because I think we were there for we drove down, I'm going to say maybe 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, because we realized that we were idiots. And after we realized we were idiots, that I don't know why we thought we were going to sing with a band, because I mean, what were we thinking? But that's the problem. We weren't. We were young, and we were very excited, and we were very much into illusion, and you can do anything, even if you can't actually sing, and never has sang in your life. I mean, oh my God, we're going to be part of a band. And then when we realized we were idiots, I think we just drove home after that. So I'm going to guess maybe 2 weeks. And then we went back to drudgery and normal life, because we realized we were fools. And that was when I was 18. Of course, when I was 19, I wasn't that bright. At 19, I decided, I woke up one night, and I'm like, I'm so freaking bored, because I was trying to find something I wanted to do. And I got in my car, which was a Pinto, which is really sad right there, orange and white Pinto. And I drove west, and I was going to find my life. And I drove to St. Louis, Missouri, because my sister lived there, and I knew I could get a free place to stay, which she wasn't too happy about. And so I stayed with her for a bit, and I looked for a job. And my first job was, it was in a soap factory. Worst job I've ever had in my life. And what you do in a soap factory is, my first job was, I was supposed to take these, this is like what your grandmother had. They had the bottom of the thing, the soap was in it, and then there's like a top, and the flour was in there. So I was supposed to go like this, like a monkey, and like for hours. And I'm like, wasn't working for me. Besides which, the people there were being paid a really, really good rate of money. I was being paid temporary money, which was really shabby. And they smoked a lot. I mean, when you went to the lunchroom, everybody was smoking cigarettes, and they were bored out of their minds. But at least they were being paid pretty good money, and then they could chat with each other. But I was a stranger, and it didn't go well. So I quit that job. Like by the end of the day, it was horrifying. And then I got a job as a clean job, says Sandy. Clean job. Yeah, there was a lot of soap in there. I don't know. I think I was sucking up soap soap bead fumes or whatever. And then I got a job as a dancer. And back in those days, when you were like a go-go dancer, you actually wore clothes. So I had like a bathing suit top, and like I had like a little thing I tied around my waist so that you couldn't see my actual body, like a Tahitian look. And then I danced. I was a good dancer, so I made money until the girl who was the boss's girlfriend, she decided she hated me, and so she made people throw bottles under my feet, and they broke. And then I went to work at IHOP on the midnight shift, and IHOP on the midnight shift, you don't make any money. You like make $1 an hour and no tips. And I asked this one girl from East St. Louis, I'm like, why do you work here? And she goes, where else can I work? And it made me really sad. And then I realized I was kind of lucky because I was actually a fairly well-educated girl from a fairly wealthy family. So I just jumped in my car. I think I asked Daddy for money. And then I drove to California, and I got involved in in Hollywood. And if you watch my show coming up on Sunday, this was such a great promo lead. If you watch my show on Sunday at 3:00, Sunday, 3 p.m. EST. Okay, I'm going to do a show on Brittany Murphy. And I loved Brittany Murphy as far as her, how she, her acting and all that. But I really wasn't all that familiar with her death. And so I watched the recent show on her that's put up at HBO Max. And I don't usually promote those, but it was pretty good in its own way. And I have a new theory about how she died, why she died. And this has not been brought up before. So I'm really excited about it because I really am. I'm excited about it because I believe, having spent a year in Hollywood and seeing what I've seen there and knowing about what I know from profiling and psychopathy and homicide and suspicious death or non-suspicious death, that people have missed the point. And I believe that show was interesting, but it missed the point. And so on Sunday at 3 p.m. EST, I'm going to do a rundown of what I believe actually happened to Brittany Murphy, and I'm real excited about it. So, and then I will show you a picture of me at 19 years old in Hollywood, which you will be astounded how awesome I look, and say, like my kids do, that can't be you. Thanks, kids. Okay, I'm not 19 anymore. Okay. Hi, Lisa's here. Let's see who's here. Martin's here. Hey. Okay. So that's my freaky story about psychopathy. But what I want to point out about the Florida trip was the dude was a liar. And he was only 17 years old, and he was already lying and manipulating. The dude was a psychopath. And it was amazing how well he manipulated other stupid people. And I say stupid people with quotes around it because then people get mad at me. But we were stupid at 19. And I want to point out to many people that, when you think your kids are smart at 18 or 19 years old, oh, my child is so smart. They would never do that. Your child is never as smart as you think your child is. Your child is an idiot. And and you were an idiot. Because if you actually look back, unless you were in a very, very conservative family, maybe a very church family, and you had very, very strict behaviors, if you were let out there into the world without lots of training as to how to not get into trouble, what we can do is we can look back and we can say, gosh, I don't know how I'm alive today because I did so many dumb things. How am I even alive today? And I'm one of those people that can say that. I'm like, good thing I'm still here. And so we want to, Lisa says, that's me. Exactly. So when you're raising children, one of the things you want to do with children that you're raising, which is why I wrote, where's my book? It's gone. Oh my gosh. Wait a minute. Seriously, my book is gone. Huh. Well then, what did I do with my book? I have no idea. How to Save Your Daughter's Life. What? Okay. How to Save Your Daughter's Life is a book I wrote. Buy it on eBay because right now they're charging ridiculous sums, and buy it on eBay. But I wrote that because I'm like, you want to believe that your daughter's going to do all the smart things, but in reality, Your daughter can get swept up into an awful lot of very negative things. She can get swept up by a bad boyfriend. She can get swept up by an older guy. Brittany Murphy got swept up, and that's what I'm going to talk about on Sunday. Your daughter can get into all kinds of issues with drugs and prostitution and the YouTube and I'm not YouTube, sorry, drugs and prostitution and the internet, chat rooms and things like that. Because your daughter is not as smart as you think she is. She may be smart in certain ways, but she's also in a world where you have a lot of freedom. Oftentimes you want to experience the freedom and you want to have fun. Yes, Lisa says they have to experience things and learn on their own. True, Lisa, but maybe they need to, if they're instructed well by their parents, maybe they cannot experience things quite to the level. Maybe some of us experience those things. So in other words, we can lower the risk rate. That's what I'm talking about. I always talk about lower the risk rate. It's not that you can eliminate risk, but lower the risk by teaching your children to be smart. Right now, I've talked to my aunt, my granddaughter, who's only 7, and I tell her about the 10 stupid things people do. and she says to me all the time, is that one of the 10 stupid things, Grandma? I'm like, yeah, that's one of the 10 stupid things, And we go over the 10 stupid things because I'm like, look, I don't mind if you want to climb a mountain, but climb a mountain with experienced mountaineers. I don't mind if you want to travel the world, but travel the world in a way that's intelligent. I don't mind if you want to have, you're like an adrenaline freak. Okay, become an EMT, become a police officer, do something that adrenaline is legal. Don't do the 10 stupid things. And if you ask me what the 10 stupid things are, I change them all the time when I talk about them. But 10 stupid things: drugs, getting hooked up with a guy, and being in a relationship within a week, those kind of things. So we're not that bright when we're young. And I think it's important to realize that we're not that bright and stop believing your children are that bright. They're not. They're as dumb as you were. So anyway, that was my silly story for the night. Because I lived that experience and I just wanted to make sure. Martin says, sometimes gambling plays a part. Gambling. Well, we do. We gamble with our lives. We do. And again, what I point out with gambling is okay if you're gambling when you've got a 9 out of 10 chance you're going to win. When you're only going to win 1 out of 10 times, you're an idiot. And that's the difference. And that's the problem, is that we have to be able to determine what the risk factor is. I don't believe in staying home and not having a life. I've traveled all over the world to places where people go, my God, you went there? And I'm like, yeah, because 9 out of 10 chances, because I planned correctly and I understood the political situations, I had a good chance of nothing happening except for something freaky. Now, I don't think that, for example, right now I'd roll over to Afghanistan and say, hey, I think I want to visit Afghanistan. No, that's a 9 out of 10 chance you're going to be killed. Don't do that. But if you go someplace and it's a 1 out of 10 chance, and you make sure that you travel in a safe manner, and I'm going to be doing a whole series on safety for traveling, especially for women, you can survive. And you can enjoy a great life. I've been all over the world, and Annie can tell you. Annie and I hit China and Mongolia together. And let me tell you, we went to Mongolia and China in a way that was not traditional. So when you're lying on a sleeper bus crossing China, it's not a traditional way of traveling for Westerners. Westerners will fly in, and they'll have a big, huge tourist bus with air conditioning. It's all tourist, and they'll have all this. They'll go to Western hotels, and they'll make sure everything is very, very boring. And we did things in a really unique way. We took the sleeper bus to Mongolia, and then we took a train from the Mongolian border into Ulaanbaatar, and then I hired a company which gave us a Russian van, and then we traveled to stay with families in the middle of absolutely nowhere. So it was a very unique experience, and very exciting. Was it as, quote, safe as super Western travel? Probably not. But I did as best I could to make it as safe as it could be under those circumstances. And so we had a marvelous time, best trip ever. And yet we did things a little differently. So I think that's important. Okay, so let me see what other question we have. Kay said, I'm not sure you answered my question about whether you have considered doing a profile on the Missy Beavers murder. Have you? I think I did answer that. And I said, yes, I will. I just have to. It's on the list. And if you see how long the list is right now, the massive list I have of what I'm going to talk about and what I'm going to do a video on. Sometimes the video I do has to do with what's happening. The reason I'm doing the Brittany Murphy video this week is not because, well, people did ask me about it, but it was lower on my list until this week. The documentary came out with HBO Max, and I'm like, I got to jump on that. So that's why I'm doing it. But it's on the list, and I will do it, absolutely. Lisa says, I've been to Iran several times, and when I went back to work, I was asked, are you okay? Some people have such a narrow view of life and the world. That is true. But I do and what I'll say in some of my videos is that I'm very, very respectful of local cultures. Whether I agree with them or not, I'm respectful. And when you see my video come when I do it on travel and how you should dress, you'll see me in a hijab. I wore when I was in Egypt. I've been to Egypt twice, and I spent a month the last time I was in Egypt, and I was hijabi the whole time I was there because it is a secure way to walk around the country. It doesn't indicate my religion. It doesn't indicate my political thoughts. It just indicates I would like to be treated with respect, and this is the way to do it. It's safer, and I'm going to leave all the other stuff to everybody else, but I was hijabi. And, you know, what I always find about being nice is that when I was in Egypt, I mean, like this, when you put on the thing properly, you get like a cheap facelift, and you look really like 10 years younger. And then when I came back to the U.S. and I took my hijab off, I'm like, oh, damn, I look a lot older. so got some good points about the hijab. And Annie says, sleeper bus without a working toilet. This is very true. And for us who were on the sleeper bus to Mongolia, the joke there was that there was an issue about your luggage being out in the rain, but our luggage, luckily, was stored in the toilet, which you couldn't then not use. But hey, the good news is your luggage is in the toilet. It's not getting rained on. And so you just had to hold it till you got to the lovely, lovely bathroom stop where you got to sit on the toilet in full view of all the other females. And so what a humiliating experience that is. So interesting stuff. I want to answer a question that somebody asked about serial killers, that they hear so much about serial killers in the United States, and they wonder, are there serial killers out there in the world, other places? It's just the U.S. that's full of serial killers. And the answer is no. I mean, serial killers, unfortunately, are everywhere in the world. And this person said, hey, I haven't even heard about serial killers in Europe. Well, okay, you're reading the wrong books, because England, like, go back to Jack the Ripper. I mean, there's a ton of serial killers in England. And France just recently found out that a police officer just passed away was responsible for a whole series of serial homicides in France. There's no question. Russia has been famous for having, I think, the most prolific serial killer of all time up there. And don't ask me his name because I always forget it. Somebody, you want to do it, you can do it. Whatever his name. Something like that. I was doing this book tour once, and I was in Ohio, and I went into the studio, and the dude's like, okay, we're going to talk about serial killers. I said, just do me a favor. Don't ask me the names of anybody because I can never remember. So we get on the show, and he goes, so Pat, what's the most prolific serial killer of all time? And I'm like, son of a gun, that's that Russian dude. I'm like, it's hard to say, because a lot of serial killers, because they never get caught, have committed way more crimes than the ones that have been caught. Thank you, Lisa. Andre Chikatilo or something like that. Yeah, that dude. I can never remember his name. So yes, so Russia has a many, but it doesn't mean that other countries don't. I mean, there's been Brazilian serial killers, there's been Indian serial killers, there's Filipino serial killers, Japanese serial killers. Yes, they're everywhere. Now, the reason you don't hear about it is simply because generally speaking, you pay attention to American news. So American news, Nancy Grace, CNN, MSNBC, all these channels are going to bring you, of course, American serial killers, and those are going to be the ones that stick in your head. And why is that? Because they're in your territory. I mean, you don't really care what happens in Japan. I mean, let's be realistic. I mean, you're like, oh, that's so sad for those poor Japanese people that got killed. But hey, thank God it wasn't here. So somebody killing off 30 people in Russia isn't as meaningful as somebody killing off 30 people in your neighborhood. So we pay attention to what happens in our neighborhood. We don't pay attention to what happens overseas very much, unless you get into a true study of what's happening. Lisa says, looked it up. Andre Chikatilo. Oh, there you go. Andre Chikatilo or something like that. Yes. Martin asks, has crime been different during the pandemic? For example, has the nature of homicides changed in some instances? Oh, my God. I'm glad you asked me that, Martin. Yes. What's happened during the pandemic is crime, murder across the country has escalated massively. It's been really horrible in the United States. I don't know about other countries, but it's certainly just escalated here. Where I live in Prince George's County, Maryland, the homicide team can't even keep up with it. They cannot keep up with it. I think it's 30% higher or 50% higher than last year. Why is that? Well, there's a number of reasons. One is people are just in a bad mood. I mean, there's something about having a positive attitude toward the future. And one of the problems we've always had with people who are don't have as many opportunities is they don't see the future. Like a lot of gangbangers. I mean, if you're living in a neighborhood where your daddy's already in prison for 30 years and your mom's like, she may be doing like some drugs, and maybe she's crackhead. And then the dude down the block that's working, you know what his job is? He's a janitor. And at that point, you're like, screw it. What's the point? I'm going to go to school. I'm going to come out and become a janitor, or I'm going to end up in jail anyway. So what's the point? I might as well have a good time now. And so what happens is you just don't care as much and you don't see the future. So you throw everything away because you might as well get a gold chain and a girl and a cool car, sell some drugs, and have a good time now. I feel very, very, very strongly about presenting the future to people. And that includes senior citizens. Because one of the reasons senior citizens get often very depressed is because they don't see future. They're not looking forward to getting married. They're not looking forward to having a family. They're not looking forward to a career. It's all over. And they get very depressed. So how does a person who's a senior citizen see the future? So they don't, luckily they're usually not into killing people because they're like too lazy to do that. But that is a problem, seeing the future. So now we have the pandemic. What has the pandemic given us as positive hope for the future? It kind of sucks right now. It really does. I mean, our economies are a mess. We don't know if we're going to die next week from COVID. We just don't know. And we don't see the things we saw 5 years ago. I could do this and I could be successful at that. We don't see that as much. And so for people who are in a relatively healthy state of mind, it's not too bad. But now go to those folks who are already having issues with the future issue. And now COVID's on top of it. They're like, I'm just pissed. And so and on top of that, we've had the defund the police problem. So we have defunded our police. We've made in the US. I'm not going to talk about the rest of the world because I don't live there. And one of the things I try not to do is tell another country how they're doing, because then they're like, shut up. You do not know anything. And they're correct. So I'm going to talk about the US because I live here. The defunding of the police, the hatred toward the police, has made it very difficult for the police to hire anybody. They're not getting new people. And they're also losing. A lot of the people are just saying, I'm done. I'm not going to go out into the community and have them shoot at me and treat me like dirt. And I'm scared to death of arresting somebody and be accused of killing them. So I'm quit. I'm done. So they quit. They're quitting early. People who are at the retirement age where they might stay around for 3 or 4 more years are just retiring. They're just like, I'm done. and it's hard to get people to come into the police academy. So we're getting more people who are not the people you want as police. We might get more psychopaths, but sometimes it's so bad they can't even run a police class anymore. They can't even run the academy class because there's not enough people for it. So now we have less people on the streets. We have less, and a lot of the officers on the street have been told to stand down on almost everything. So they are standing down. So the criminals are just running wild, and they are killing, with abandon, because they just don't care, and the police aren't out there, and the detectives are overwhelmed, and they're in a bad mood. And people in bad moods do bad things, and that's just a reality, because they don't have a good attitude toward the future. So when the girlfriend pisses them off, when the drug gang, I'm just pissed off. I just don't give a crap. I mean, a lot of us during COVID, like me, I just gained weight. I didn't shoot anybody, but I was like, I don't give a crap. But there's people out there, their way of not giving crap isn't overeating and making themselves fat. Their way of not giving a crap is killing people. So yeah, I think we've had a really bad thing going on with it, with COVID and the anti-police thing put together. It's been a disaster. I mean, if we'd had one without the other, if we had COVID but not the anti-police thing, we'd be in better shape. But we've really gone into a really bad situation, and the homicide detectives can't even keep up with the work. I mean, there's like a murder every day. Look, here's one, by the way. Let me point out this one. I just saw this one. This is in my town. Okay, where is it? Video. Suspect who shot 12-year-old girl fires from a sunroof of a moving car. This is right down the street from me. It wasn't even the target. He shot a 12-year-old girl, and he shot it got up in a, so what he's working with. He's standing up in the sunroof. We're talking about gangbanging there. I mean, just unbelievable. A driver, the same area, driver crashes after being shot by the police in my area. Why was he shot? Probably because he did something he shouldn't have been doing. I mean, it's insane. I mean, the murders are coming in like daily instead of weekly. They're coming in daily. It's like, where do we live now? What the heck is going on? So it's really creepy. So Martin, that's a great question, and it's really, really, really sad. I mean, it's gotten bad. On the serial killer show. Somebody else, here's another question that was asked, which I thought was really good, was about rapists and serial killers. It's like, do they have beginning behaviors? Like, do they just go straight to rape, or do they start with peeping Tom and burglary and all of that kind of thing? And the answer is they do tend to move up. And that's why the police should pay extra attention to anybody who does the peeping Tom, sneaking into somebody's house and leaving bubble gum in their underwear, or they just wandering around in people's houses, burglarizing. Here's the thing: what happens with psychopaths, serial killers, and rapists? Serial rapists, by the way, there's never such thing as a one-time rape. It's always a serial rapist. It's just it's always, you don't just do it once. So it's serial rape or serial homicide. So what happens is their thrill is getting in on your territory. And so they start with a thing I call sneak and stand. Sneak and stand is where, you're just like doing something, and all of a sudden you're like, why are you standing behind me? What are you looking at? Why are you there? And they like to crawl up on people and see how close they can get to them. Because, we all have that boundary, and they like to cross that boundary. And different cultures probably have different methods or different ways of becoming sneak and stand people as far as how close they can get. But it's like you're doing something that you culturally do not accept. So there's things that are not acceptable in certain cultures that are acceptable in other cultures. So you have to look at your own as to what is not appropriate. For example, I spend a lot of time with people from India. And one thing is like women do is they'll sit next to you and put their hand on your leg. If that happens in the U.S. with an American woman, you're like, are we dating? Are you into me? Well, when Indian woman does that, it's just not natural. Also, so say the same for Pakistani. They'll touch your leg, but they're not into hugging. Hugging is like, it's like, and the hug is usually, it's a different culture. So you look at your own culture and you say, where is the line? serial rapists, serial killers like to cross that line and start sneaking in on you and doing things that they want to see how far can they get. How close can I get to doing things that are naughty, that are offensive to you? And so they go from that to perhaps peeping Tom stuff, where now I've crossed into the point where I'm looking into your window and observing you, maybe partially naked or totally naked, and I'm peeping at you. Now that's a complete crossing the line. Normal people don't do that, but I want to see if I can get away with it. And if I can get away with it over and over and over again, now I'm going to pull up your window, crawl in. Maybe you're not home, but I'm going to go through your clothing. That's another one. I love that. The chewing gum thing is gross, but a number of people have done that. And they put the chewing gum in the underwear. Because, when the woman comes back and opens up her underwear and finds chewing gum in there, she knows she's been violated. So it's a violation issue. It's like, I want to see how far I can go to violate you. And this is psychopathy, because no good human being wants to violate another human being's. They don't want to violate their sense of privacy. They don't want to violate their space. They don't want to violate them in any way that would make them uncomfortable. But that's not true for serial criminals. They love to violate your space. And they keep ratcheting up the violation because as they get better and better at it, they want to see, what can I get away with? I can do this. And so, yes, peeping Tom, sneaking into your house and playing around with your clothing, and then maybe burglarizing your place where I go in there, steal your stuff, and then I rape you, and then I kill you. So, yes, it's a ratchet up type of thing. So when you have somebody who does something and you don't want the police department to say, he just peeped in her window. He just snuck in and looked around. No, there's no just. The just means he's about to do something else and he's dangerous. And we have to pay attention to that, because unfortunately, a lot of times it's downplayed, and it's a shame when it's downplayed. Let me see what else we have here. Question. Kay says, what? Okay. Kay says, there is talk about defunding the police, but haven't yet. I did a study on police who have died on the job. There are about 50 police who have died on the job. That includes car accidents and heart attack. At that time, over 700 civilians were killed. Okay, I'm not going to get into that, Kay, because that becomes a very big political issue, and I refuse to get into it. I am 100% pro-police. I support the police. I do back the blue. I have family members who are in the police, and I know what it means to be a police officer. Now, having said that, I'm not going to say there are not some police who are crappy police officers. There are some police who do things that aren't correct. But I will say this. The people who usually say this and do these reports usually have never understood actually what the police do on a regular daily basis. Now, I have done ride-alongs, and ride-alongs are fascinating. When you do ride-along, you know what I thought when I finished a ride-along? I'm like, I would go out on Friday or Saturday night and do a ride-along. And holy God almighty. When I came home, I'm like, I cannot believe the restraint the police officers showed with all these criminals that they had to deal with, these thugs, these disrespectful, really crummy people. And there were different versions of it. There were the criminals who knew the police well, and they would go, "Oh yeah, officer, whatever. Okay, let me just put my hands behind my back. Put the things on. I'll sit down on the curb. I'm good. I'm going to go in. Take me in. I'm going to get my bail. I'm going to get out." And then there were the other ones, and they would fight. They would bite. They would spit. They would claim they couldn't breathe. They would claim that the handcuffs are too tight, and they would cause nothing but trouble every single time they were arrested for a crime, mind you. So when you're a police officer, you're dealing with criminal after criminal after criminal after criminal, year after year after year. The simple fact is, most of the time, most of these police officers are doing their job, and they're taking their lives and putting their lives at risk every single time they arrest somebody. You don't know. When you're in some neighborhoods, oh my God, you wonder if you're coming out alive. It's terrifying. Because these people are armed. They're packing. These people are psychopaths. It's, and a lot of the people who live in those neighborhoods are like, please take this dude out of my neighborhood. He's scaring the crap out of my kids. This guy's ruining our lives. He's part of a drug gang. The drug gang is in our apartment. They're giving drugs to our kids. A lot of the good citizens of those neighborhoods are not anti-police. They're very pro-police. But because of all this political stuff, we're hearing, the police do all these bad things. It's not true. It's just garbage. And there are some police, because, again, you don't have perfection. Occasionally you get police that got past the hiring process who shouldn't be there. Sometimes you get police in certain areas who just, whatever reason, they step over the line. I'm not going to defend them. And the police who work with them don't really want to defend them either. They want them out of their department. The problem is they don't want the department to go down with them, and they don't want to go down with these bad cops. So it's unfortunately, because we're unable to have rational discussions, that we have a lot of very, very politically motivated and very emotionally motivated stuff. Kind of what this is the whole issue I had with the Gabby Petito case. We had this Gabby Petito case, and somebody just came online and said, "Look, I love your videos." But when anybody says, "I love your videos," but they're about to insult you. And he said, "But you were completely wrong on the Gabby Petito thing, and you should have been there at the beginning, making the claims everybody else made, that she was murdered and that Brian Laundrie was her killer, and you shouldn't be nice to the family of Brian Laundrie because they deserve the crap they got." And I'm like, I'm going to stand behind what I said before. I was not willing to jump into the fray and encourage this kind of really nasty negative behavior out there before I even knew that they hadn't even found Gabby Petito. 2, they hadn't found, when they finally found her body, they called it a homicide, not a murder, a homicide. And I'm not going to call somebody a murderer unless there's some substantial evidence. I'm not going to jump into that fray. I'm not going to encourage lynch mob. I'm not going to do it. And the problem is we can't have a calm conversation about domestic abuse, about what might have happened. We can't have a calm conversation. And the same thing is happening to the police. It's like, oh, look, that police officer, he was a racist, blah, blah, blah. And this all goes out of context, and people aren't able to sit back and say, okay, let's review the actual evidence. And that's why I'm very, I won't go there, because I don't want to, again, based on stuff I do not know what evidence one is even talking about, that we can't be rational about it. And then we take down, entire police. It's kind of funny because, in every country, there's been different issues with police departments, and there's certain movies which you can watch from other countries where, like, the police beat the crap out of everybody and they're crooked as heck. And that does exist, mind you, it does exist, but it doesn't exist necessarily in all of the police of that country, but it becomes popular in movies and films because it makes for drama. And so, for example, when Mexico and India, they have a lot of movies about crooked cops, but I have not experienced any problems in Mexico or India. Does that mean the problem can't exist? No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying I lean on rational. I lean on, let's not jump to conclusions, because it's unfair and it doesn't do us any good. And if you're going to make everybody, like, all cops are like crooked and they're racist and they kill people, blah, blah, blah. You know what's happening now in the United States? We don't have enough police officers. That's why we have a double homicide rate across the United States. Do you know how unsafe your neighborhoods have become because you've basically told police officers, stand down and don't do anything, and hey, don't join the police force because, hey, it's not worth joining, because you're going to be called, if you're a white person joining the police force, you're going to be called a racist. And if you're a black person joining the police force, you're going to be called an Uncle Tom. You can't win. So no matter what you do, you're going to put your life on the line, and you may end up in prison for something you didn't do. And you might get shot on the job just from people hating police officers. So now, even though there are concerns we should have and we should deal with those concerns, we've become so enraged that we're destroying our police forces, and we're ending up with either no police or some really psychopathic police people who are joining the police force because they're like, we can get in now. We can pass. Hey, they don't even care about the psych test anymore. They're like, do you breathe? Okay, we'll hire you. So now you're going to get police officers you really should be scared about. So I push for rationality. Okay. Oh, Kay said, I didn't say all cops are bad. I'm not saying you did. And you say there is a problem. There may be a problem, but it's the problem may be exaggerated in ways that shouldn't be exaggerated in. And I say, I don't want to get into the whole political thing here. But now Kay's saying again, are going to do a profile on Missy Beavers? I just said I would. That's going to happen at some point in the future. One thing I want to bring up here is an interesting thing about profiling, which I was thinking about the other day, because many people, this is the book I wrote, The Profiler, which sometimes shows up on Amazon for $2.99 when they're trying to get rid of my book, and sometimes ends up being $8.99. But if you get it for $2.99, grab it. But this is the book I wrote many years ago. And what's fascinating is I wrote the truth about how profiling works and how certain things have been ineffective and how cases haven't been closed. And I got a lot of flack for this book in the United States, kind of like 50-50. Like detectives don't have a problem with the book. Families of victims of crime think the book is fine. People who watch too much television think the book sucks. Interesting. So now go over to Ich bin Profiler, which is German. Now, fascinating that I was going to work on a whole German crime series with a German producer who loved my work. But generally speaking, I get almost 1-star reviews off this book in Germany. They hate me over there. I don't know why. I'm curious about what their system works like that they would hate what I wrote. Absolutely hate me in Germany. But interesting enough, in Korea, and let me see. Can I read this? I do actually know some Korean because my first boyfriend was Korean. I can say a few things. Which means I love you. But for all of you guys, I'm just going to say which is I like you very much. But they translated this into Korean, and my response from Korea is almost 100% positive. They love this book. They love me. And I'm like, what is it about South Korea that loves me? But Germany hates me, and America is like, So it's very interesting. And I don't know the answer to that. I'd have to really study their system of, the investigative system, their police system, their cultural system. But it's kind of funny because, I don't know. And Kay says, sorry, I didn't hear you say that. Okay. I did say that earlier, but maybe you were. I don't know how you missed that, but okay, yes, I will do Missy Beavers. I will. And I'll tell you why I'll do it, because it's such a fascinating case. And I talked about it sometime way back on Nancy Grace, probably. And I don't remember what I said, but it was super fascinating case, super fascinating. Missy Beavers, I'm sure I'm on the right place. Texas. We're talking about Texas. She was the exercise instructor. And she arrives really early in the morning, and some guy comes in with like SWAT gear and ends up killing her. A really freaky case. Okay, absolutely, I will do that. That I just have to have time to reanalyze all the video and all the details on the case. It has not been solved, and it is very weird. I mean, there's no question that is one of the weirder cases I've ever seen. And the question comes down to in that particular case is, was Missy Beavers, was she murdered by someone she knew who set this whole thing up? Was she murdered by a serial killer? Or was she murdered by somebody who had no clue she was even going to be there, and she was? So there's like 3 possibilities, and I can't remember which one I thought was true. So I'm going to have to go back and review everything because I just don't remember. I've been in this business a long time. So a lot of times when there's a case from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I'm like, I probably spent like 20 hours looking at that case. And now I have no clue what I thought. Really sucks. So, yes, I will definitely do it because it's too interesting. I mean, there are some cases where people ask me, will you look at this case? And I'm like, there's nothing much I can say about the case. I mean, it might have happened 40 years ago, and some some girl walked out of a store and she disappeared and she was murdered, and it's probably a serial killer, but I have nothing to lend to that case. I mean, it's like they didn't solve it 40 years ago. I can say, oh, it's a serial killer, but not much I can say more about that. And I try to make sure that when I do a show, I've got something useful to say. I'm not just giving a story. Again, I don't do stories. I don't tell the story of a crime. I'll leave that to the other YouTubers who they're not profilers, they're not detectives. They're going to tell the story because they don't have the ability to analyze necessarily. They're just going to tell a really cool story, and they do. But I'll leave that to them, because if I do that, then what's the point? I mean, it serves no purpose. So my stuff is always going to be about analyzing. So if I can analyze a case and come up with something interesting to offer, if I can teach you about profiling, crime scene analysis, psychopathy, domestic abuse, even, I'm going to, I will talk about that. But first, I want to make sure I have something to offer. And if I don't have something to offer, I probably won't do that case. But Missy Beavers, interesting case. So I got to go back and review that case because it was so freaky. And, usually you don't have freaky cases like that. I mean, that's a pretty unusual one. It really is. And as far as we know, the guy that came in there with this whole SWAT gear on there and killed Missy Beavers, we've never heard about him again. I mean, so who the heck is this guy? Why did he want to kill Missy Beavers? Or did he want to kill Missy Beavers? And I have to go back. I said, go back through and analyze everything and see what is the most probable analysis and the most probable motive, the most probable reason this occurred. And whether I'll be proven right or wrong, it's hard to say. So it's like I never looked at a show I'm going to do on Sunday with Brittany Murphy. I mean, I didn't know if I had anything to say on that earlier, but now that I've researched it, I'm like, yeah, I got something to say. And therefore, I will say something because I think it's educational and it's interesting. And so HBO Max did a very nice show on just talking about what happened to Brittany Murphy. Different people said their things, and they did the traditional documentary thing with coming to absolutely no conclusion because they don't have a conclusion. They're telling a story. But for me to do the same thing HBO Max did, well, let's put it this way. Who's going to do that better, HBO Max or me? Well, I'm going to guess HBO Max. So it's kind of stupid for me to do that. But if I have something to add to that, if I have some way of analyzing what actually happened and use crime scene analysis and profiling, then it serves a purpose. So yes, I'm very excited about this particular show. It's coming up on Sunday at 3 p.m. EST. Really excited because, I find it absolutely fascinating issue. So let me see if anybody else has any interesting questions that I missed today. Oh, let's see. I've got to go back up and look. To see if I missed something up here. Let's see what this is. Hold on a second. Oh, okay, I've already answered that. Okay. I think those are most of the questions have been. Does anybody else have any extra questions? Now, I know we've got a lag going on with our comments today because somebody in internet land hates me. But so if I don't see any more questions, I might call it a night. But if you have more questions, you better grab it while you can. So it's been an interesting week. There's lots. Oh, let me tell you what's else in the news. Wait, before I leave, Robert Durst has been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Susan Berman, and he was denied a new trial. So at least after, how old is this dude now? He's going into assisted living at the prison, but he definitely is going to be. He's finally in prison. But when I look at what I call an investigation successful, I mean, how many people does the guy have to kill? And he's like, who do you think could have killed this wife of his? How about him? Oh, who do you think could have killed that dude down there, and they chopped up into pieces? Well, it was him. Who did he killed his friend? Maybe it's him. But all of those were just left unsolved, as if we didn't have a clue who could have done it, in spite of the fact the same person was connected to all three, and one of those people he chopped up into smithereens. What took you so long? My opinion, that's pretty bad profiling, pretty bad investigation. Lisa says, isn't she the actress who died of some pulmonary disease? Then her boyfriend or husband died of the same thing a few days or weeks later. Yes, Brittany Murphy died, and she was 32 years old, and she died. Then the autopsy said she had pneumonia and a good amount of legal drugs in her system. 5 weeks later, her husband dies of the exact same thing. You just got to wonder. You're like, is that the weirdest coincidence ever? Or should we think maybe something else has happened there? And that's what I'm going to get into because it's a fascinating case. And I think I have a good answer, a very good theory, a theory that nobody has ever come up with before. And if you know me, I'm not one of these people that just comes up with a theory just so I can make money. You know what I mean? Oh, like, okay, that was theory 1, theory 2, and theory 3. I'm a YouTuber. I want to make theory 4. No, I don't do theory 4. But I looked at this and thought, this is what I'm seeing, and I don't see anybody seeing this before. So I find it fascinating. And it's just I can't explain it. I just find this is really a super fascinating thing. So show up on Sunday at 3:00. 2 quick questions. Oh, okay. Come. This is from Martin. How's Ziggy? So Martin's asking, how Ziggy is my cat? Well, okay, I'm going to tell you. So Ziggy, the serial shitter, and is that going to get me? Is that going to ruin my monetization? The serial shitter, that's what he is. Anyway, ever since my granddaughter went back to school, he's been like very upset that he's not getting as much attention. So he came back in the house after he had his 24-hour downtime because he was doing things in my house again. And I'm like, okay, so I got this great idea. I'm going to move his food bowl to where he was pooping on the carpet to tell him you can't poop on the carpet here. Then again, he came and spent time with me. I petted him on his little head. And then he spent time. My granddaughter came over and we actually spent time with him for like 3 hours. Then he came out. I'm standing there. I swear to God. He eats his food. He looks at me. He poops on the carpet and then he goes out at the cat door. So how is Ziggy? Well, he's on detention again. It's like, I don't know what to do. I can't seem to figure out how to stop this cat from destroying my house. I don't know. It's done on purpose. It's not like you can't get out the door in time. So I don't know. It's like, would you like Ziggy? Martin, please take Ziggy away. And Martin, I did not catch Peter Hyatt alive today. What did Peter Hyatt have to say? What did Peter Hyatt? I'm curious. What did he say? Because I like Peter Hyatt very much, so I'm curious what he said. So do answer me, Martin. A case says, at what point is a case considered cold? That may be a stupid question, but no, that's not a stupid question. Okay, that's a great question. And here's the interesting answer to that. A case really goes cold in 48 hours, pretty much. Maybe, okay, you can push that. You can say, okay, we did everything we could in 48 hours. We're still working on it. Maybe a week or 2 weeks, maybe a month. But when a case is like 4 years old and the police department goes, well, it's not a cold case, they're lying like dogs. It's cold as ice. I mean, if you can't solve the case in a year or 2 years, your case is ice cold. You are not even looking at that case. You put that case on a shelf, and what you do is like, I hope we get lucky. Hope somebody confesses something. I hope we get a great tip. I hope DNA solves something one day. It's cold as ice. And what they do traditionally is tell the families, the famous statement is, family goes, what's happening with the case with our murdered daughter? I mean, it's been 2 years now. What's happening? We're working on it. They're not really working on it. They got to say that because what else are they going to say? It's on the shelf. We filed it because we don't have a clue. We've done what we can do. We don't have a clue. We're just hoping we get lucky. So actually, cases go cold really quickly. 48 hours, that's what they say. The first 48, it's very meaningful. That means that's the time you get your witnesses, your alibis, and you get your evidence. And after that, things get a little steeper. Now, I'm not saying, if you know who did it, you might not get them in the next week or two. Yes, you can do that. Even sometimes in a number of few months, if you're looking at a particular person where you know who you think did it. For example, Brian Laundrie. Is that case a cold case? No. What happened was the girl went missing, and clearly Brian Laundrie was a great suspect from the beginning. I would not publicly say that, only because I didn't have any details on what happened to the girl. So publicly, as a professional, not going to say anything. Well, then it was listed a homicide, and okay, why was it a homicide? Now Brian Laundrie comes to, we know the police are looking at him. We know he's the number one at the time person of interest. And then when it was then come through as a strangulation, that turns it into murder, which means chances are, considering he was with her and her body was found so quickly, he is the one and only suspect now. So it's not a cold case in the sense that they have the body, they have the cause of death, and they have the suspect. And it's now a matter of time to catch the dude, unless he killed himself or fled the country. That's where they are. So that's not a cold case. But a good portion of time when they haven't got a clue, Delphi case, cold as ice. Now, maybe they'll get lucky one day, but it's cold. And when they say, oh, it's not cold case, they're lying. It's a cold case. Delphi case, really cold. Summer Wells, I'm going to say the police are still looking at the parents. Oh, the Summer Wells parents are going to go on Dr. Phil, who, I have no appreciation for at all. I think let me put it this way. I will not do his show ever again. I did it once and will never do it ever again. And I've refused every time I've ever called, because Dr. Phil is a creepy dude, in my opinion. And he will have Summer Wells' parents on. And you have to wonder why Summer Wells' parents are willing to go on there. And it's usually because they're trying to convince people that they have nothing to do with what happened to Summer. Usually a bad idea. And I can't wait to see the show, not because I like Dr. Phil, but because sometimes it's a really good, it's interesting to see the entire conversation, what they're going to say and how they're going to try to defend themselves. So I'm looking forward to that. But right now, is Summer Wells a cold case? Yes and no. No, yes, because they don't have a body. They can't prove anything at this point. No, because they have suspects. And I'm going to say those suspects aren't strangers. So they got a chance there. So that's a really great question. Martin says, I'll have Ziggy. Please, I'll give you my address, pick him up, take him home with you. I'm going to live with that stupid cat forever. Lisa says it's territorial issues. No, Lisa, it's not. There's actually a very funny video. It's a COVID video about cats. And the cat says, he starts singing, "You're in my chair. Why are you home all the time? I liked it when you were working and you weren't bothering me. And now you want to pet me all the time." That is not my cat Ziggy. My cat Ziggy says, when I'm in the house, I want you to spend all your time paying attention to me. And if you don't pay attention to me, I'm going to crap on your carpet, which of course is white. So no, my cat is evil, and he's doing it on purpose to get attention. He's not territorial. This is his house. And when my granddaughter was here, and we're paying lots of attention to him because I was homeschooling her for 6 hours a day. She was here for like 8 to 10 hours a day. There was always somebody in there to pet him, and we picked him up and we put him on our laps. And now she's not here. He's annoyed. And so he's going to say, if you don't pay attention to me all day long, I'm going to crap on your carpet. Even if you give me 3 hours in your bed, still going to crap on your carpet. So no, he's a psychopath. Lisa said, did you say he had other animals? No. I've had other animals for a long time. Ziggy did not have a problem with the lizard, the mice, except he killed one of them. But okay, that wasn't his fault. One mouse escaped from the cage and went under the door, and he whacked it. And I didn't blame him for that, because that's a cat, And now the remaining mouse has a new friend. I have a toad, and a bearded dragon, and the 2 mice. And no, the cat is not bothered by them. He wasn't bothered by them for an entire year. The problem was my granddaughter leaving the home and not spending all the extra time petting him on the head. That's just what he is. Martin says, Peter was talking about how innocent, guilty missing mothers sound when they talk to the media. Oh, that is interesting. I do recommend, if you're very interested in statement analysis, check out anything Peter Hyatt does. He has some really great viewpoints on, how to analyze what parents say to the press, whether innocent or guilty. I did not I'm going to look that up, Martin, because I do like Peter's stuff. Peter does much more detailed kind of analysis than I do on statements. I do statement analysis, but I do a more broad viewpoint. So we have kind of different ways of approaching that. My way is more realistic for what a detective might be coming in contact with. A detective is doing he's doing an interview with a killer, somebody who killed somebody. He's not going to be able to analyze all the details like Peter Hyatt would, but there's some really major stuff that a lot of times are overlooked and not recognized. So I do the bigger picture. Peter does the more detailed picture. I think both are very valuable. So check out anything Peter Hyatt does. I totally like him. Mothers of missing children. Yeah, they're very, very interesting. Kay was saying, I was thinking of Delphi. Delphi is a cold case, Kay. There's no way Delphi is not frozen cold. It's been, 4 years? They have no clue who the dude is. Basically, they got a video of a guy. They never were able to identify him. They have no evidence linking to this guy. I don't know who the heck this guy is. I don't know that they know who the heck the guy is. Maybe one day they will, and they'll get lucky. Or maybe I don't know if they have DNA in this case. And this is a problem. This is an interesting that's been happening. The Golden State killer got caught years later from DNA, because back when he was raping and murdering people, DNA was an issue. And then eventually, he left DNA because he wasn't worried about it. But now people are more worried about DNA because they know they can be identified. So they have ways of now not leaving DNA by, either gloves, masks, condoms, whatever. They don't leave as much DNA. So the question is, do they have any DNA? And we don't know. If they don't have any DNA, all they've got then is a video of a guy. And let's say somebody finally says, I think it's Joe, my cousin Joe. They go to cousin Joe's house. What are they going to see at cousin Joe's house? Absolutely nothing. And they'll say, cousin Joe, did you kill those two girls? And he's like, no, I didn't do it. And maybe, let's say he stabbed them to death. But that knife now is at the bottom of a lake someplace. He wiped it off anyway. There's no fingerprints on it. And now it's at the bottom of a lake. Even if they find the knife, they can't connect it to Joe. Even if his wife says, Joe had a knife like that. So what? Joe had a knife like that? Is that going to be acceptable in court? So I would say at this point, it's a really cold case. Lisa says, as far as Ziggy goes, I see you've profiled him. Yes, I have. I mean, I've lived with Ziggy for a long time, and if I can't profile my own cat, I'm in trouble. Kay says, what do you think is going on with the German person in Madeleine McCann? Well, if anybody hasn't seen it yet, I have the video that's the five main clues in the Madeleine McCann case. I wrote a book on Madeleine McCann. You cannot find it on Amazon. You can go to Smashwords or Kobo or Barnes & Noble, Apple, and it's called Profile of the Disappearance of Madeleine McCann. And I detail in there the basic crime and how I analyzed it. You can also go to the Daily Profiler. Put in Daily Profiler Madeleine McCann, and it's a blog I ran for years. I'm not doing it much anymore because I'm doing YouTube. But I have many blogs on Madeleine McCann and different issues, because I went to Portugal. After I wrote the book, I went to Portugal, and I met with Gonzalo Amaral, and we spent time together, and I did some research there, some snooping around and looking for where a body might be. And then after I came back from Portugal, because I'd learned more things, I wrote blogs on that. They're free and available right on the Daily Profiler. Just put Daily Profiler Madeleine McCann, and you'll get more information on the case. But you can also just watch my video, which is the 5 main clues of Madeleine McCann. Here's the issue with Madeleine McCann. There has never, ever been any proof that there was an abduction. Never. All the evidence pointed toward the McCanns as being involved in what happened to their daughter. That included the dogs, the dogs hitting on their apartment, cadaver dog, blood dogs hitting on their apartment, cadaver dog and blood dog hitting on their car. All the bizarre behaviors of the McCanns, the things that they didn't say that made any sense, the suspects they completely ignored because they didn't want to pay attention to them, because they wanted the case to look this way, the investigators to look this way. There's so many strange things about that case, which do not point to abduction. So what's happened over the years is that the Portuguese police believed that the McCanns were involved in what happened to their daughter. And that Gonzalo Amaral, the main investigator, wrote a whole book on it. And then McCann's got his book pulled off the market. They got my book pulled off of Amazon. And Gonzalo Amaral eventually won in the Portuguese Supreme Court. And his book is back on the market, and he's written a second one. But what's happened, meanwhile, the British police came in, Operation Grange out of Scotland Yard, and they spent $20 million, I don't know what it is in pounds, but like $20 million digging up Portugal and pointing to this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy and never coming up with a damn thing. And now all of a sudden, out of the blue, the Germans have said, oh no, it's our guy here. All they have, literally all they have, is this German dude did live in Praia de Luz, near where Madeleine went missing. He's a creepy dude. And I'm not saying he's not a sex offender. He is. But guess what? If you ever gone to a sex offender thing, you go like, look in your own neighborhood, you put in the sex offender, show me the sex offenders in my neighborhood. You're like, yeah. One's one block here, one's one block there. This guy 2 blocks there. You're like, holy crap, I can't let my kids out of the door. There's so many sex offenders in my neighborhood. This dude was a sex offender. And he happened to have a place that he lived in Praia de Luz in Portugal. So suddenly he became, after 20 years or whatever, I don't know how many, 14 years, whatever it's been now. It's been so long, I can't remember now. Sorry, I got hair on my face. It's annoying me. There it is. Okay, so now suddenly Germany says, oh, we got the guy. And they started out by trying to say that, they knew this was the guy, blah, blah, blah. They dug up all his land. They came up with nothing. They've come up with no body. They've come up with no photos. They come up with no DNA. They've come up with zero. All they really have, get this one, is they claim his phone like pinged somewhere in the area. And yet the prosecutor couldn't even come up with a good explanation for how they pointed that to exactly where Maddie was. It was just nonsense. And maybe some gossip. And now it's been like, I think, how long has it been? A year now? I don't know if anybody knows that, but about like a year now. And they're like, we know it's this guy. We're just waiting to get more evidence. Like, if it's been a year and you don't have any evidence on the dude, guess what? You don't have any evidence, and you never did. You're trying to blame this crime on a guy that you don't like, that you think is squirrely. And I've always said, at some point, I've always thought the way to close this case down is to point to somebody who either is dead, or it's a pedophile who's dead. And they already did that once. I think they said some pedophile said he attacked, he was the one that took Maddie, and then he died. And so I thought that was going to be it, but no. Now it's a German dude who he's saying, I didn't do anything like that. But here's what can happen. Here's the way you do it. What you do is you find another case, and depending on how much time the German dude is going to spend in prison, let's say they got him on something that's going to spend, 10 years. And they say, look, we got another case. It's going to put you in prison for life. But if you confess the Madeleine McCann case, we'll take that. Well, you do the confession, we'll make a plea bargain, and you'll be out in 10. You'll be out in 15. You'll be out in 20, whatever it is. And then the guy's like, let's see. Okay, if I confess to that case, I get a lesser sentence. All right, I'll do it. And on top of that, not only that, but then I get like the credit for, kidnapping the most well-known kidnapped child of all time. Whoa, I'm going to go down in history, man. So, yeah, okay. I wouldn't confess if I was going to get out in 5 years, but if I'm going to be in prison for 30 years and you're going to give me a deal, all right, I'll confess and I'll take the credit for it. So that's what you do. That's what you do. And if you haven't seen that happen before, I'm going to say, go to my videos and find the case on Todd Kolop and the Superbike murders that I worked. And Todd Kolop was a serial killer, and the sheriff and the prosecutor got him to confess to a multiple homicide, 4 people, mass murder in a motorcycle shop. They got him to confess to that with zero evidence and complete garbage because he got out of the death penalty. So he was going to get the death penalty for the murders of 3 people, but if he confessed to Superbikes, then he'd just get life. He's like, all right, I'm good with that. And now everybody says, oh my God, Todd Kolop had committed the Superbike murder. No, he didn't. Go watch my video. He didn't commit that murder. I'll stand by that. I'll stand strong on that. So, yeah. So the German dude, unless they come up with a body in his yard and prove me completely wrong, that the McCanns had nothing to do with what happened to Maddie, and that was like, could there be, okay, let's just be fair. Could it have been an abduction that left no evidence of an abduction? And all the behaviors of the McCanns were bizarre as all get out, but they're just bizarre people. Could that be true? And the answer is, I guess it's possible. Not probable, but possible. So if this guy turned out to be like, wow, you actually did take Amanda McCann, if you can prove it to me, I'll say, well, go figure. It was one of those anomalies where every profilers and detectives absolutely could come up with nothing that proved an abduction, and that the McCanns were such bizarre people that they behaved in as guilty a way as possible over the last God knows how many years. But that goes to show sometimes weird stuff happens. Okay, I'm okay. I'll admit that. But you better show me some proof. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Kay. So loved your McCann profile. Thank you. Martin says it's the other way around. Ziggy has profiled everyone in the house. Ziggy knows I will never throw him out permanently. So he just knows he can abuse me forever. Lisa says, how did the cadaver dogs pick up on her scent in a rental car that was rented weeks after she disappeared? That is an interesting point. And it is a point of contention. And the concept is that the McCanns moved her body from a location which they thought was secure to begin with. And when they thought it was not secure, they hired a rental car, put her body in the boot, and then drove that body to someplace, which if you look on the daily profile, it says, find the body and proved I killed her. I found a location, which I think is a very probable place to bury a body, just outside of Praia de Luz, where Jerry's phone pinged. So what happened was that's why there could be a cadaver in that car. Now the dogs were taken into a garage, and there were all these cars, and the dogs ran right over to the McCanns. And so again, some people claim that the guy was handling the dogs pushed the dogs into the McCann's car, but it was very interesting that he only hit on the McCann's vacation flat. The dogs only hit on the McCann's car, in spite of the fact there's others available, and on clothing as well. So very interesting stuff. So let's see. Kay says, Lisa, oh my God, let's see. Oh, and Amaral predicted they'd use a German criminal. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, German, really? I don't remember that. And Kay says, oh my God, I had no idea Amaral said that. The people who pointed to the McCanns as the obvious were so screwed. Hi, Pat. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't remember him saying it was going to be a German, but hey, that's interesting. One of the problems with being outspoken on anything is that, you suffer the problem of possibly being wrong. And nobody's perfect, and it's possible to be wrong. And then that sucks. But I'll tell you what's happened to me more than often than not is that I believe I'm right. But because of the politics of a case that, for example, in the Todd Kohlhepp case and the Superbike murders, I mean, I spent a week down there. I analyzed all the evidence, and I said, this is my number one suspect. And I said, he's still my number one suspect. And then when Todd Kohlhepp confessed to the murderers, I'm like, he's lying like a dog. And I proved he was lying. There was no question. He claimed all the victims were shot in the forehead. And yet all the autopsies say none of them were shot in the forehead. And the police went ahead and said, Todd Kohlhepp said the right thing, that they're all shot in the forehead. That's why we know he's the killer. And they lied. They straight up lied. And so this is a case of a very corrupt sheriff, in my opinion, and a corrupt prosecutor. And so there are people out there who can now say, see, Pat Brown, she sucks as a profiler. She didn't profile that case right at all. She never had Todd Kohlhepp in her sights. She's completely wrong. And the frustrating part is that I have proof that I'm not wrong, but the media will not put my information out there, so I'm screwed. So that's what happens. And so the media controls what people think. So if the media, which has always been very pro-McCann, decides that the German guy did it, believe me, we're going to hear that the German guy did it, and that Gonzalo Amaro was a fraud. Pat Brown was a fraud, and we're all going to get screwed. So, luckily, I have wonderful places to live where I can go off and nobody will ever know who I am. Kay says Peter Hyatt did a great video on Madeleine McCann. Yes, he did. He also is his statement analysis also points to the McCanns, which is interesting because Peter Hyatt is a man of his own. He's a man for him that does not bend to other people. So he doesn't suck up. And I can never do Mark's name. Mark Sokonokono. Mark Sonokonokono. Maybe botching that again. Mark Sonokono. He's from Australia, and he has a wonderful podcast. And I rarely recommend podcasts, but he did a podcast called Maddie, and he actually interviewed the German prosecutor, and boy, did the German prosecutor screw up all over the place. I love that. And Mark is also not bought. So, Peter and Mark are their own men, own persons, and just like I'm my own person. So hey, it's not that we can't be wrong, but at least we're not bought. So that's kind of neat. Florence said, hi, Florence. I read online that the name Stan is a code for send the authorities now. Did Gabby Petito try to send her mother this code when she mentioned her grandfather? I don't think so at all. I absolutely, send the authorities now. Let's face it. I want to ask everybody here, how many people knew that Stan means that? I didn't know. I'm going to say 99.9% of people have no clue what the heck that means. And besides, her grandfather was actually named Stan. So no, I think that was likely I think the correct answer probably is that Brian Petito made an error and tried to pretend he was her and use the word Stan instead of whatever she called her grandfather. Because there's no way, for example, my granddaughter calls me Grandma, not even Grandma. So if they said she said Grandma, I'm like, that's not my granddaughter. If she said, oh, is Pat there? Oh, no, my granddaughter's never going to call me Pat. If she doesn't say Grandma, it's not me. So the parents were alerted. They're like, she's never used the term Stan with her grandfather. So no, I don't believe. I think they send the authorities now thing. This is what happens on the internet. Here's what happens. When you can pull everything out of a hat, you've got hours and hours and days and weeks to come up with something. People come up with something, and they come up with a lot of somethings that are complete bogus somethings, just because they can and because they overuse stuff. They over investigate, they over imagine, shall we say. So yeah, I'm not going to go with, I think that's, I have never heard of anybody say Stan means send the authorities now. I'm sorry. It's a great idea, but I don't know it. I'm sure most people don't know it. So if somebody said Stan has told me this, I go, who the hell is Stan? And would I Google it? Who the hell is Stan? Oh, it's send the authorities now. No, I think that Gabby was probably already dead at that point. I don't think she warned anybody. She didn't. Unfortunately, the sad thing about this whole case, people don't understand, is that people who are in domestic situations, and I don't know what level of domestic abuse there was, and I won't go there because I think people are exaggerating things. And again, they're making up stuff they do not know. I don't know what the circumstances were between the two. Clearly, and I do believe at this point, he is the murder suspect, Brian Laundrie. And if he strangled her, and that is that's pretty abusive. I don't know what he did until that point. I don't know what evidence there was until that point. I don't know what evidence she had that she should run from this relationship. I don't know, because I wasn't there. And that little video, I'm not going to say that video is proof of anything, because God knows we've all been in, quote, domestics where we throw dishes and shriek at each other. And God knows it doesn't mean we're going to kill each other. So I won't say that there was massive proof that she would have after that police incident, she had the night apart from her fiance. If she felt she was in severe danger at that point, She could have jumped. She was already in the dang vehicle. She could have driven the vehicle away. If she didn't want to drive the vehicle, she could have called Uber. She could have called her parents and said, I'm in trouble. Brian's acting scary. I don't want to be around him. She could have asked for help. She didn't. She got back in the vehicle. They got together again and off they went. She had a chance to escape. She didn't choose it. Now, that's very common for domestic abuse victims, by the way. Sometimes they don't choose it because they still believe, oh, it was just, it's just an incident and he really loves me. And so they go off together and then they have another massive argument. And this time she doesn't come out of it. I do not believe for a moment that she ever would have given a hidden thing to her parents. Stan. Why would she even do that? She could just write her parents, hey, Brian's about to kill me. I mean, it makes no sense. I think that's just nonsense from the internet. That's just nonsense from the internet. And that's what people do when they have too much time to ruminate over things. They don't even understand how things work. So, no. But a good question, Florence. I mean, it was an interest. I never heard of that myself. I mean, I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So maybe if we went into all the classrooms, we told everybody in creation, the next time you're in a situation where you're in trouble, say stand, then that might work. So if the pizza guy shows up and he's not the pizza guy, and you have an opportunity to say, get on somewhere you're on the phone with somebody, you can say, Stan is here. That would be great. If they know what Stan is, they're like, oh, really? Who's Stan? And you're like, Stan. And they're like, I don't know any Stan. Yeah. A lot of times it doesn't really work because you got to have both parties understanding what the heck that would mean. And yeah. So, but not a bad idea. But again, you'd have to do a whole lot of teaching across everywhere before that would become useful. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't people who've given interesting notes or interesting bits of information to people to let them know they're in trouble. And sometimes people caught on and go, wait a minute, something's fishy. I think they're asking for help. And it's very cool. I mean, when somebody figures out that the person's actually asking for help and then calls the police and brings the police in, that's fabulous. But, the problem is making sure that your message gets across doesn't, the person standing in front of you, if they're about to kill you, is not catching on to your message, but your message gets across to whomever you're on the phone with. A lot of times that's when somebody says something like, call your parents and tell them you're going to be late tonight. So they want you to, let your parents know not to worry about you. So you call your parents and say something like, I'm not going to be coming home tonight because and you make up some bogus story that they immediately know that doesn't make any sense. And they go, oh, that's got to be a message. Something's not right. She would never say that. That's just wrong. And this is what happened with the Petitos. They're like, why would she call her grandfather Stan? So actually, she didn't do that if she had been on the phone and texting and trying to indicate something was wrong, she could have done that. But I personally think Brian just, because he didn't think of him as grandfather, he thought of him as Stan. I think he was just trying to prove she was still alive. But hey, she could have just said Stan, not because it meant send the police, send the authorities. Now, what a fancy name for that. What about send the police, STP? Anyway, Stan. It could be Gabby, just not because she knows what Stan means, but she thinks if I just say Stan instead of my grandfather, maybe my parents would pick up on it as being weird, that I would never say that. So there's going to be something wrong. I would more likely think she would do that. So anyway, it's an interesting little thing, but I think that the internet just got carried away with that one. So anyway, that's it for today. I think I'm going to head to bed tonight early because I was up a good portion of the night watching all the shows on Brittany Murphy. And now I think I have to go watch one of her movies now because she was really a good actress. She really was. She was pretty sensational as an actress. I saw her first in Ramen Girl, which I really, really liked. Thought it was an adorable movie. And now I think I've got to go back and look at, one of the other highly recommended movies of Brittany Murphy. I think she was just a really good actress. Really shame that she only made it to 32 and she, really, really sad case. But I'm going to talk a lot about Hollywood on Sunday because I was there for a year. So I'm aware of what Hollywood does to people. So I've got some personal little, stories about that. So looking forward to seeing all of you then on Sunday. And I'm glad you're here tonight. It's exciting to have you all as usual. And if you're now watching the show because you've come here after the fact, because this is Patreon, and the people who are here right now are friends of Patreon. They're supporting me through Patreon. And if you'd like to support me and join into Hangout, go below and click on Patreon and join us. It's really made a huge difference in trying to stay alive here with YouTube demonetizing me a lot. And you're welcome. See you soon, Martin. Lisa says thank you so much. Glad you were here, Lisa. And Kay says thank you. Glad you were here as well. So anyway, like the video, share, whatever, and be here on Sunday because it's going to be really interesting. So see you then. Oh, Florence, thank you for, and now that you're here, I'm glad to see you here, Florence. Thank you, Pat. Now I've got to go see the Stones. The Stones. What is that's in the Rolling Stones? Is that what you're talking about? I don't know what the Stones means. I mean, I know there's Stones like in what are those Stones like? You know, as a like stone. What am I thinking of? What am I thinking of in us? Is it Scotland or England? Who has the Stones? Yeah, they're called the Stones too. Oh, your Florence says yes, the Rolling Stones. Okay. Is there a special on about the Rolling Stones? I mean, I don't know. I mean, but go and enjoy. The greatest thing about YouTube and the world today, to a great extent, is that you don't. In the old days, you had to be there. You had to be there. The show was on at 7:00. You had to be there. If you weren't there, you missed it. And you could never see it. You would miss the movie. You'd miss the show, and you never saw it. And now you could just, you just see there. You can record it. You can see it later. It's amazing. So, live in LA at the are you going to the stadium? Actually seeing them live, Florence? Like live? Oh, that's cool. I mean, how old are they? Are they alive? Are the Rolling Stones alive? I mean, aren't they like 90? I mean, but if they're still alive and you're seeing them live at the stadium, that's awesome. Cool. That's really neat. Yes, they're 78. Oh my God. Oh, somebody's older than me. Okay, that's cool. Martin says, enjoy the Stones. Sounds great. It's quite a thing to be able to see, especially something you followed all your life, and now you get to see them live before they die. I mean, and that's why I do YouTube, because I want all of you people to see me alive before I croak. So there you go. Anyway, good night, everybody, and I will see you next time, and hope to see you on Sunday for the Brittany Murphy show, which I think is going to be really interesting. So bye, everybody.